Pray tell, what was Jailor talking about when he said, "But wait, what about what is to come?" Oh.
Yeah, what is to come? The new villain.
To come?
Yeah, what is to come? Yeah. It's as John said, John said, it's WOTIS. That's the first name. Space TUCUM. To come. What is to come? The new boss.
Damn.
The new villain for World of Warcraft. Yeah. What is to come?
To come.
Yeah.
I'm almost thinking of that like a rapper name. You know.
Yeah.
That's it. Little to come. So.
Jesus Christ.
Okay. Nope.
Go back.
Reverse. Reverse.
And get time shift and revert that.
Okay.
No, Stormy, go back. Crowy, help.
Connell, if you're clipping, clip starts now.
He flies around it.
Well, Matt, what was the jailer talking about when he was talking about what is to come?
You know, Connell, I don't think the clip works if you just burst out laughing after saying come. Oh, dear. Anyway.
Come.
Yeah, so he was talking about a thing that other people have talked about.
Yes.
It wasn't just the jailer going, this is something that I've just thought of right now at this very moment in the recording booth doing my voiceover lines. It was very much actually something they've been leading into with N'zoth, talking about largely the same kind of videos and wanting to bring us together, not just like, oh, I'm going to kill you, but together we can build a black empire stronger. He didn't say that, but imagine he did. That might make sense.
Together we can break those chains of love.
Yeah, but then Alpharim and Caesar, the Oracle, were talking largely about the same thing of, there's something else going on.
Yes.
There's very much lots of ways of explaining. Lots of things are happening going on. He then said that the threat will surface again next when it makes sense, which isn't right now in Dragonflight because it's a story about dragons and stuff. So if we see anything, it'll be vaguely thematic, but it won't be anything actually happening.
See, one comes pretty recently, so for two come they've got to recharge.
There's a refractory period on that.
I'm very sorry. John, you've ruined this entire segment of our stream, you bastard.
No, you have by laughing.
Yes, I've also ruined it by laughing.
Yeah, so another thing that was asked for then was, is this a Void Lord like? Not obviously like seriously, but like, is it, related? And it is no, they haven't explored that relationship in any capacity just yet of Old Gods and Void Lords. They're going to be doing that at some point. But it is very much like, the Void Lords and Old Gods, they're not the same as the Titans, not the same as the Light. They aren't rigid, they don't have a hierarchy. It's not like the Old Gods report to the Void Lords and the Void Lords report to the Voidest ones or whatever else. It is just, the Void is adaptive, as is life, as he says. And then Void can disagree and change things up, so they're able to make interesting decisions on the fly and stuff like that. And then, Godon says, Void will be explored in the future. Yeah. He didn't quite say that, but the way you say something without saying it, literally, that's one more that's happened of going, Void is going to be a big thing we do in the future.
I suppose I would then, if I was here to do a follow-up with Steve, I would say, okay, but what
is to come?
What did Morazon see?
Yeah.
Right, in End Time, right? It's pretty heavily implicated that he sees something really bad, so he decides to go Team Tentacle.
I'm assuming that wasn't mentioned by Steve very much as an intentionality, because I think they may have dropped that to a degree. They've either dropped this degree or they will continue to use that very literally.
Well, he did talk about Nosdormu and infinite stuff in this expansion, so it would be giving it up too much to say that.
Yeah, and there's two questions at this point where the first thing he said was that would be too spoilery to talk about in depth, and then went around the spoilery bits to talk, which the next one, which was, will we see more alternate Azeroth timelines? He's like, well, that's a bit spoilery. But then ultimately said, there's Bronze, there's Infinites, there's storylines planned there. Stuff like the Asmerloth was more or less something that a quest designer thought would be cool and went ahead and led and implemented and stuff. So that was like that. But the TLDR I took...
Many worlds theory from.
Yeah, the TLDR I took from it was that part of the storyline ahead is inevitability versus possibility, which is the Bronze Titan Light look is the one true timeline. Obviously the Titan timeline and Light timeline, the Amanthil timeline that he showed in his Stormer and wanted to protect may not be the same as the Light, but it's the same fundament of, here's a straight line. There is one line, we go down this. The Light may have one that's like here, but we go down this one. Whereas the Void are like, yeah, bro, check it go down. Obviously, the Infinite, the Infinite lean into that as well.
That's how the Void talks. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. The Infinite are very much that same of. It's two sides of the same coin of the Infinite and the Bronze, and then even like here went on to say it, but the Infinite seem more negotiable now. Are you all right over there?
No, just Anthony got me.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Oh dear.
That's actually just. Anyway.
Yes.
So here then
back at the analyst's desk.
Here then talked about the Infinite seemed more negotiable and a little bit more defined than before.
Yeah, better with the Turnus.
When they were just we're the big thing where we're doing stuff for some reason.
They felt like Skeletor's minions. Now they feel like they're doing stuff.
Yeah, and then they talk about how like the past stuff is hard to figure out what their goal was. They have an objective. At some point in this expansion, they may be closer to realizing it, but they aren't a monolithic entity. They're not just, hey, we're all one big blob going on one big goal. There is possibility inherent to them. The Infinite means the infinite time ways, the infinite outcomes. That's kind of what the way they take their name. So I think, to me, that's all of the talk that we had before about the Infinite and Bronze being two sides of the one coin, and them ultimately being like a part of patch content to go, well, we need to reconcile the Infinite and the Bronze as like one whole kind of yin and yang of this one Dragonflight that is in charge with time. And then obviously that being Chromie and Eternus ultimately stop Murozond or helping him accept Murozond for some purpose is ultimately what seems to be happening there. None of that was said, but it all would like listening through the way he was describing it in my head, I was like, yep. That means that like he generally confirming our theories on this stuff, not necessarily on the outcome, but on how things are going to go is what I read into that heavily. And then they went off a little bit of a different question about, will they continue the singular, no faction split storytelling? Because obviously, or no faction split storytelling is in, you just do it all one character over. And more or less said it was a question of resources, which is to say it's cool to tell small split stories. They really liked doing that in Legion. That was great. Definitely was. All those class order rolls. But at least for Dragonflight, and I think generally they want to make sure players can get the whole pie without having to level a bunch of alts or like revisit stuff or do anything kind of weird. They just want you to log in, one character, have the whole story. If they do it again, it will be a conscious choice, and it'll be largely a question of resources of, is there enough for one player to get half of the pie and feel happy with what they've got? And then if they want, they can do that half. Versus,
I think ultimately what happened there is Legion had a very, number one, plenty of work. I think it had more time being worked on than your typical expansion.
Yeah.
But also I think a lot of those stories were class stories.
Yeah.
They weren't as vital. Rogues is pretty friggin' key. But they were kind of preparing to fight, solving little mysteries, things that resided, that were important to the plot, yes, but resided around the plot. And I think where they then ran into some issues later is the plot just started to become more sort of fragmented. You'd almost feel like you kind of needed to have a Horde and an Alliance character to get everything.
Yeah,
and I think it as well. It is a point of resources, but clearly a lot went up shit creek in those two expansions, far more profoundly than anything went astray in Legion. And I have to imagine that had an impact on content.